was getting answers, but still just willing to wrestle, willing to literally do the hard spiritual work of asking those questions and maybe not liking the answers or hearing an answer, and literally doing the hard committee work of being at a meeting, and the emotional work and physical work of taking care of meeting, all of those things. But it's also, I think, deeply rewarding in that I feel very connected to not just my meeting, but the world, the earth, my ancestors, my culture, my community, my local community, my larger community, my family. Circles and circles around me. So, the spirit.
I know that you've had a particular relationship with Lucretia Mott as someone that you would look back to. Are there any other examples of Quakers, past or present, or people that you feel embody those principles that might not be Quakers, who influence your practice?
I'm really amazed by Alice Paul, who worked on women's suffrage and was sacrificed so much for her cause and our cause, and allows me to vote to this day. And then there's a woman that I learned about recently that I can't remember her last name, Anna something. I want to say Davis, but she's looked on as like the mother of social work. Do you know her name?
It's not coming to me. We can look her up after the fact.
Anna Camp? I don't know. But she's an American woman from Chicago. And she founded Hull Settlement House. And she did not outright join the Quakers, but sometimes she would say she was a Quaker and her mother was a Quaker. So she was affiliated with Quakers. But she basically started social work in the United States. And she won the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. And she just was this incredible figure who advocated for social services for people in the turn of the century, and did start this home in Chicago that was a place where people could stay and get all kinds of social services in that home, be it tutoring or job counseling or literacy work or whatever, or even stay for a short period of time. And so when I was reading about her, I just thought, this person sounds like she was influenced by Quakerism. And sure enough, she was. And she never, again, just so, iconic to Quakers, like, we don't proselytize. And so she didn't, advocate for any particular religion when she was offering these services. But they would have these worship groups or silent worship that was offered there.
Oh, wow.
That's
really cool.
That's very cool. So she was this amazing person and just another inspiration. So that's this other theme that I think about. And when I even talk about it with my children, it reminds me that, it's like, you should tell your friends you're Quakers. Just like all those years ago, my friend was clearly so proud that he was a Quaker, and I was just sort of, yeah, okay. Would you stop talking about it? So when I say this to them, and I'm trying to explain, you're not trying to convert your friends. We don't do that. But you also just want to say positive things about your experience as a Quaker, and so that your friends know what Quakers are and don't have negative associations with Quakerism. That's all that is. So it's this, I'm so mindful of the fact that the way that I talk about being a Quaker is so distinctly non-evangelical. And this is what this very important woman was doing too. She could have used her broad influence to spread Quakerism, but she didn't. And she didn't help all these people and act as a missionary. She was completely non-denominational. And in the same way, all of these, I did end up attending a Quaker college, and never once did they evangelize. And I now teach at a college that was founded by Quakers, and as a condition of their founding, they don't evangelize at all. They're Quaker founded, but not affiliated. It's just this incredibly, in a way, mixed, but so central to Quakerism legacy of Quakers is that we are so humble about who we are, and that we don't force our opinions, that we don't proselytize or evangelize. And that's really different than other faith-based organizations. So Hull House, which was founded by her, leads to this whole legacy of American social work that is not about mission work. It's about just providing social services. Anyways, admire that. I went off on a tangent. It's my own way of being proud of being simple and humble, and yet wanting to us to shine our light by not shining our light, and wanting to teach my children to say you're a Quaker but not evangelize.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about this person whose Quaker principles were somewhere close to the heart of her activism. And you defined Quaker principles as like this process of questioning and valuing questioning, listening to yourself, listening to others. And it's really interesting because there's one of the ways I think we can spread the message further is by, we don't even need to name it all the time, but as Quakers, like, be ferociously, in support of, everyone's like individual rights to, their own autonomy and their own freedom, whatever that means for them. And so out of that, I was curious, because those strike me as leadings that Anna and Alice Paul, they might not have referred to them as leadings, but in the Quaker tradition, we might refer to them as that. So I was curious if in worship, have you ever sensed a leading, and how did it come on? How did it present itself? And can you talk a little bit about the process of discernment that you went through?
For myself, I have had what you call leadings in meeting, and they have come to me usually because I have sat with very focused questions or queries. So I'll say that I have a go-to if I'm having a difficult time centering in meeting. I'm very content just to let my mind go blank. But if I'm having a difficult time centering, I will ask myself, what is God trying to tell me this week? And let that be my query. And I found that very helpful. But there are other times where there's been something that has been very specific that is troubling me, and then I'll ask a very specific query. Which is, related to something I have been thinking about. And usually it's over a process of several weeks that I will get some kind of discernment. And sometimes that comes from things people have said or not, too. And sometimes it comes from the general question of what is God trying to tell me this week? What is the message that God has for me this week or this day? So that's kind of very open-ended, but it allows me to sort of scan my week and think about what I've experienced. It's been effective for me. So
That's incredibly valuable. I feel like sometimes I haven't heard a lot of other friends talk about like specifically what's happening kind of when we all center and go there. So that's really nice to hear a little bit about your experience.
yeah.
And it kind of reminded me, there was a time, I always meant to tell you, and I can't remember the vocal ministry that you were giving at the time, unfortunately, but I remember you were sitting behind me, and all my vision just became like glitter, and I saw like just like fluttering light, and then you immediately rose up like right after that, and I thought, whoa, I think I just saw your message going in.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
I drew a picture of what it looked like a little bit.
That's
I'll have to show you
powerful.
sometime. I've always heard about this thing where like sometimes like messages will like, they'll move around the meeting sometimes, where like someone will be sitting with it and like testing it and waiting to see if it's their vocal ministry they should share, and someone else will get up and say the exact same thing or something like
My
that.
goodness.
What does Quaker practice, some of what you've just outlined, what does this practice have to say to the world that we live in today?